as you guys I'm sure will notice soon into the video, that this video was actually taken a few weeks ago before I even had anyone in the Betta fish rack system, but I still just got a chance to edit it now, and I just wanted to still throw it at you guys, where Joey is just sort of going even further into detail on explaining things in my videos on my channel. So make sure that you guys tune into the playlist that I have called The King of DIY Specials, and I will have more videos that I'll be adding that are sort of this sort of style, where it's just Joey explaining in further detail stuff on my channel for my videos, but it's about my systems and stuff like that. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up to thank him, and subscribe to his channel for more of his videos, and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this and vlogs and other style videos that I do as well. Ooh, look at them.
Well, you're missing a tank, but
it's ordered.
they're all individually controlled. Each one has a ball valve on it. Each one is controlled, but with betas, you don't want the water to be too flowy. So we're still getting oxygen exchange. We're still going to have biological filtration. My suggestion would go bare bottom, just for easier tank maintenance and whatnot, and then you could escape them with whatever you want.
Yeah.
But the betas are going to lay bubble nests, and they don't like them to have all, you know, jumbled around and messed around. So you'll notice that it's only on one side, kind of circulating the water, aiding in oxygen exchange. The entire gallery's heated as opposed to the individual aquarium, so don't need to do heaters, but just missing one tank. That one pump is hung up here. We can control the flow, I believe. Yeah, but is it turned up all the way? No, that's turned down all the way. So this is turned up all the way. So that tiny little air pump, which I think was only like 40 bucks, powering everything. Total cost, I don't know for sure, I can't remember specifically, but definitely under $1,000.
And you hung up all my little nets.
Oh yeah, and your water change devices. You just need a bucket for your water changes.
Yep.
My suggestion would be to drain. Oh, and the tanks aren't filled up all the way either.
No.
But we're not going to go all the way to the top. We'll probably just go 2 finger lengths down, so maybe 1.5 inches. And this will allow you to have plants that can grow on top. And betas aren't known for jumping, but they can and they will. So, but we also don't want stagnant water with no flow. It could attract a tremendous amount of insects and bugs, of course algae and whatnot, but each aquarium being individually filtered, for the most part, a lot of people like to use these tiny little cubes and filter all the tanks into one sump. I think that that is not what a betta requires. I think 3 to 5 gallons would be the minimum amount you'd want for a beta, but it also allows for zero transmission and or cross-contamination. It also allows for you to control each individual tank, so maybe you do want to add a little peak to one tank and see how it reacts as opposed to the next one. We're not looking to make the perfect betta rack, we're looking to make the perfect betta aquarium. These tiny little sponge filters are perfect. When you need to clean them, pop them out, and you can just pop this off and squeeze it in a bucket of water, you're done. Will you ever need to do that? No. But those are definitely the cutest little sponge filters I ever did see.
They are.
There you go. As water bubbles rise, this creates suction behind them, forcing the water to go through the sponge. The sponge is acting not only as mechanical filtration, but also biological filtration. Bacteria doesn't care what it grows on, but it does need a surface. And foam tends to have some of the greatest surface area, usable, continuously usable surface area of all media. But that said, I want one now.
I bet you with the betta bug.
Yeah, but I'm not letting you buy PetSmart betas anymore. We're getting them directly from Thailand.
Okay. We might have or may not have ordered some last night at 4 in the morning.
So?
Well, thanks.
Yeah. I have to get back to my own stuff.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to put substrate in them. I wasn't really planning on it at first anyway.
I think substrate's just not going to look good. I think
that's what I
every tank should probably have maybe some cool rock or something in there. But the betas typically don't display that well in a heavily aquascape tank. A lot of the times you do want a white background and or a light colored background, but you definitely do not want black. A lot of people like to do black. That works with a tremendous amount of other fish, in my opinion. Bettas do not look good on black backgrounds. They'll display their best coloration in a lighter colored background. Bettas don't typically change coloration with their environment. So one of the best things that you can do is just provide them with an ideal showcase environment and go from there.
Will duckweed on the tops of them affect their bubble nests or anything?
Yes, probably, but depends on how thick it gets. But when you are doing a breeding pair in them, then you just scoop out all the duckweed.
Okay.
Males are going to lay bubble nests anyways by themselves. But this is going to allow the betta to get enough room, spread its fins, it can grow properly. They can exercise by seeing the other males. Obviously, you don't want them to stress too much, so I did leave a ½ inch gap in between each one, so you can put like a black parrot in between. However, a lot of people think that bettas should not see other males because it stresses them. No, it gives them a tremendous amount of exercise. They shouldn't just be doing it 24/7. In my opinion, these tanks as is will work because technically the little sponge filter is a little place for them to kind of duck behind and hide. However, I think they would look a little bit better maybe with at least some sort of a scape in there. And it doesn't have to be a scape, like a little piece of wood with some java moss on it or floating duckweed or something. I'm sure you could do it, but you have 16 tanks to do it in and see what you like.
Yeah.
Ultimately though, I want your fish out of my tanks.
Yeah, I'm taking up all the quarantine now, except one.
If you have the end on it when you're doing your water changes, well, you can do one of two things, is like when the water's coming out of it. And it's probably best for you so you don't create any sort of backage, but when you're filling the tanks, obviously the water's going to come out, but you don't want to splash water everywhere, so as you go to the next tank, you let the tube fill up a bit and you pour it in.
Okay.
Fill it up. Or, if you don't like doing that, you could do with the valve. Close the valve before you go to the next tank. Otherwise, you're going to get water everywhere and compromise the structural integrity of the stand because it is just wood. And you don't want to bump into this. It's only 20 inches wide, but it's almost 5 feet tall.
Right.
So you definitely want to be relatively careful. I could have went a little bit taller to match the tank's height, but I was like, I can get into it, but like you are several inches shorter than me. So your amount of maintenance that you will have to do is you'll get a 5-gallon bucket. You'll take one of these. It's a tiny little thing to make sure like you're supposed to be able to go along the substrate, but you're probably not going to have substrate. In fact, I suggest you don't, although it would be good for beneficial bacteria. That's great if you didn't have filtration in the tank. You do. Put this in the water, you pump it a few times, down to the bucket, drain 50% or however much you want to do. Just do the calculations. These are 3 gallons, so that would be 6 gallons total if you did 50%. You probably want to do 40% because a 5-gallon bucket, you take the 5-gallon bucket, you pour it outside, and you fill it up. To do 40% water changes on all of this shouldn't take longer than 10-15 minutes. 20 minutes max. Probably a half an hour for you.
Yeah.
Because you haven't been keeping fish for over 20 years. And and with time in the hobby and experience, you can move a little bit quicker. You do see and recognize things. You have been in almost every type of scenario and situation, so it can be a little easier for me to do something as simple as a water change as somebody else. It's as silly as that sounds, but it's just if something happens or you'll understand in due time. But yeah, these are great. As for lids, I don't think we'll do them. I think the lids are unnecessary. I think having these open tops will also allow you to have maybe a piece of wood come out of it.
Yeah.
Total gallon inch here, even if, we're going to do about an inch below. So, I mean, when you calculate the the gallons of an aquarium, you're looking at the full dimensions, and we're calculating the outside dimensions. For example, that 700 gallons, 8 feet long, it's 5 feet front to back, it's about 28 inches tall. That's not measuring how much water's in it. With every tank you buy, whether it's a 10-gallon, a 20-gallon, a 100-gallon, it's based off of the water displacement of the outside of the aquarium. So these being 14.5 inches by like 5 inches by around 10 inches, they're really weird. They're like 0.25 inches here and that and the other thing. So the water displacement is 3 gallons, but it probably only holds maybe 2.8 gallons of water, 2.7 gallons, and that's directly up to the brim. We don't fill to the brim. Some people like to go right up to the trim. Some people like to go down below it. I like to be able to see the water surface. So much more you're missing out on by having your water surface at the top. I like to see the waves in the tank. I like to see the little mouths coming up if they're eating. I like to see everything, but one of my favorite things is definitely seeing the waves.
Mm-hmm.
And having them down about an inch, I'd say you're probably only total water volumes like maybe 2.5 gallons. Probably at the least 2.5 gallons. I could do the, I'll just do it, just a second. Yeah, see, inside dimensions is almost 14 inches exactly, but on the outside it's like 14.5. Because we got to take into consideration this. That's not 1/4 inch glass, but it's probably like 3 millimeter glass. These are only 3 gallons. So a gallon of water has 231 cubic inches to it. In order to find how many gallons we actually have, in no specific order, you measure the length by the width by the height, and you divide it. Oh, so you measure the length, times it by the width, times it by the height of the actual water volume. And you guys should go do this to your fish tanks. Find out how much water you actually have in it. And then size equipment, heaters, everything to the actual volume of water that you have in your aquarium as opposed to the displacement of the actual tank. So this is 700 gallons by calculations of water displacement, but it probably holds like 620 gallons, because you got to think this is 3/4 inch glass. We're missing a couple inches at the top, probably 1.5 inches at the bottom. It doesn't add up to exactly 700 gallons. In fact, I think it's by dimensions it's 715, but water volume probably like 650, 660, something like that. Technically we have 14, and I'm going to measure above where the glass is to, so 14 by 9.5 by about 4.5. So I will multiply 14, did I say 14? Yeah, by 9.5, that's where the water level is going to be at, by about 4.5. Divided by 231, so 2.6 gallons. What did I say? I said 2.6 gallons.
2.5 or 6.
Yeah, see, I could do that stuff off the top of my head, like just based off of like things like that experience. So 2.5 gallons. Now, if you do a 50% water change, now you know if you have a 5-gallon bucket, that 5-gallon bucket's going to hold 50% of the water for one level. Mm-hmm. So you'll have to drain 20 gallons total, because now it's just a 40-gallon system, and fill it back up with 20 gallons, which should only take like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Because the water flows out of the tap. If you can even get into that, I can tell you how fast the water flows out. That's how I calculate absolutely everything. I know the flow rate of the water, how it comes out, whether it's just cold water or a mix of warm and hot. How fast I could drain water, whether it's out of a regular pipe like this, or that 1.5 inch pipe that I actually use to do water changes on the big tanks. But that'll all come with time, because sometimes, I've learned the hard way, by filling a tank up for too long and I forget that it's filling and I flood the house. Especially with big tanks. I've gone to get something to eat and forgot that I was filling a tank, and I fall asleep and I come back downstairs to flooding the basement. Happens to everybody. But the longer you've been in the hobby, give yourself more opportunity for things to happen. Some people could say, oh, I've never had anything happen to me at a single time in my hobby, and they've been in the hobby 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Give it time. It's going to happen. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're a bad hobbyist. It's just things happen, and it sucks. But you don't learn from constant success. It makes you arrogant. You learn from your failures. And the more devastating the failure is, the more cautious you will be moving forward. I don't want to do this interview anymore. I feel like I'm doing a talk or something.
This video is now your video for your channel.
So this is just a little Amazon pump. It is attached to the wall. It's above the water surface, simply because if I put it below the tanks, I now have to have a check valve. A check valve is one of these things. Air can pump through here, and so can water, but if it's installed the opposite way, it completely stops it. I didn't have any more valves left or any elbows to make sure I didn't need this T, so I just put the check valves on it because I'm a genius. It has 4 taps, which is cool because you have 4 levels. Each tap goes into a T, which goes into each tank, like that. I put some droop here, so it would droop behind the tanks, so you wouldn't have like this kind of a look, where it's all like that. This gives you more options too if you want to move the filter or anything like that. I find putting it closest to the air pump the best. Each pump, or each filter then has this tiny little ball valve on it, which you can open or close to allow more air bubbles to go through the sponge, and that's essentially it. Incredibly simple, incredibly straightforward. The pump uses about 15 watts of power, So you're running 16 aquariums with 15 watts of power. If we want to calculate the lighting, the lights are only about 7 watts a piece. So for these 16 tanks, we're looking at 30 watts of continuous power. That's no different than charging your phone on a continuous basis. I'm not going to even notice a little blimp on the power bill, maybe $1.20 or something like that. It's not going to be entirely too crazy because of course the lights are half the power's in the lights, but that means each tank takes up about 2 watts of power. Absolutely incredible. Sponges will sink properly over time. All that's going on right now is they're saturated with air. So that'll all sink. That's why I said don't put the bags instead. We'll just do a water test on the stand. I know it's going to hold. We still have to fill the tanks up a little bit more, but again, no, I want Betta tanks and Betta racks, but we'll see. Maybe I'll do some. I got a couple pairs myself.
They're coming.
Yeah, and then
I'm making my own pairs. I'm a matchmaker.
Yeah. What's the girl called that runs the brothel?
I don't know.
You're the madame. I think that's what it's called, the madame. Madame Tamara. So air and water will always travel the path of least resistance. So this was up a little bit more, meaning that it's easier to have the air go through it. And because of that, it's stopping air from coming through these ones. Now they're going to start back up. So that's something I also have to do, is tweak these a bit to make sure air is going through them evenly. It can take a day or two to get everything set up and done properly.
And I am very lucky that I have you to help me out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I enjoy
Looks
this
good.
stuff. I could sit out here for hours and just like tweak it and sit there and look at it and then tweak it because it's so satisfying. Do that with protein skimmers as well. Protein skimmers take forever to kind of like kick in and work themselves in, but once they do, you can truly fine tune it. But I haven't been fine tuning anything in the gallery as of late. I've been letting everything. I'll come back to it. I'll circle back to it. I'll circle back to it. I got to get into the fine tuning phase. I still got to fine tune the 700. I got to fine tune the 2000. I got to fine tune the entire racking system. Everything out here needs to be fine tuned. So we'll see what happens. I'll leave you alone.
The parents are so bright. The lights aren't even on, but they're so glowy. Thanks guys for being here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.